In this lesson, we're going to take a look at making the wooden beams for our barn conversion. They're not overly complicated, but hopefully it's just a few little helpful tips of how to add a little bit more variation into the model rather than try and do everything by textures. Again, it's just a combination of editable poly stuff and some turbo smooths and a little bit of ripple or noise. And we'll go in and show how to do the thread of our strut and put a little block on the end of it. So what I've done is I've taken this beam that's the main central one to our where our cameras are going to be set up in here. I've selected that out into a different file, so it just keeps it simpler, and that way we know it's in the correct place to bring it back in. So this is it on its own, separated, and what I've also done then is I brought a basic version, the original version when it was just blocked out to get size and shape somewhere near. You know, I can look at the reference photos now and say that, you know, it's not exact, but you know, it doesn't really matter too much because, like I say, we're not trying to copy it exactly. We just want something to look nice. So the idea of this is, if we look at the reference images, you can see on here there's a little bit of variation along the top edge and stuff like that. I mean, this has got huge chunks missing out of it, which we're not going to go too far with because although we haven't set up the cameras, I doubt we're actually going to set one up seeing the top of the beam. So it's more about what's visible on the underside. And hopefully in this reference image, you'll see these kind of sort of big chunks missing where it looks like it's been planed or chamfered to smooth off the edges. And there's a few dents and stuff like that, just undulating surface really. So this is kind of what we're going to go for to keep things simple but hopefully effective. So the first thing, we've just got a box. We can put in our segments, so I think 4 that way, and we'll do a few this way. We don't want to go too crazy, but I still need some geometry to work with, so we'll try and keep it as square as possible. That's just me being a little bit weird probably. That'll do. We'll just convert the, oh no, I need some height segments in there too. We'll just convert that to an editable poly. So if we turbo smooth this, this is the effect we're going to get. Quite basic. So we need to be able to pinch the edges a touch more, which we'll do once we've put some detail in there. So the first thing, if we looked at the reference image again, oh, wrong one. If we looked at this one, you can see these kind of chamfers that we were talking about. So that's the first thing I'm going to try and do. So I'm just going to grab a chunk, a set of edges, and I'm going to chamfer them. Oh, do you know what? I'll just do it by eye. So we'll chamfer these edges. And then what we can do is, instead of trying to add more geometry in, I can just bring these edges up. And it should tighten the edges once we stick a turbo smooth on. So if I bring these edges forward, and then when we turbo smooth that, hopefully we'll put a few more iterations on it. You'll see the basic effect we're going for, and that works. So obviously that looks a little bit too much. That. So we'll try it again in another place. We'll do it on the underside. We'll do it a little bit smaller. We'll just take these 3 edges, and we can chamfer that. So somewhere around there. Bring these edges down. Just to tighten that up like we said. And probably stretch these out and that way it'll stop it looking so rounded once it's smoothed. When we turbo smooth that, that's more of the effect that we're going for. Now obviously you've got these pinching points, but that's because we don't have the geometry in there to tighten the edges. So what I would actually do is ring around here and connect. So we'll just say 80, we don't want it to be too sharp. Same thing on here. On this bottom set, ring around there and connect, and we'll just put -80, so it's exactly the same. Let's try it at the same time. So we can connect here. One, yep, this is something that I was expecting to happen. The reason why I selected this edge and ringed around here first and then done this one separately is because when you connect them, it doesn't always work. You know, everything goes in the same direction, whereas I actually want this edge to come this way and that edge to go where it is. So unfortunately, sometimes you just have to go the long way and do it by hand for where you want them. So we can just do that, and hopefully that should tighten up our edges enough. Stick the turbo smooth on, and now it doesn't quite look so pinched. Now we've got tighter edges. So that's one way of getting the chamfered edges in there. And then for the other little dents and bumps, again, we can just grab edges. We can chamfer these. We can pull them in just to give us a little bit more geometry, or a little bit more undulation, sorry. And we can pull these edges up, and we can turbo smooth that, and it just gives us little dents, because although, you know, it's wood, it's organic. When it's been handled and made by humans, generally everything's got quite sharp edges, like the kind of tools that you'd use, planes, chisels and things like that. So it's not such a bad thing to have a sharper edge and very square shapes for indents. So we've put a couple of features in there, and then when we turbo smooth it, we can stick a noise, or sometimes I like to put a ripple modifier on there. And again, this is the kind of thing where I just put it really high just to see exactly what we're doing. So we can turn the gizmo around. No, actually I'll keep the gizmo where it was. Wavelength, let's make that a little bit bigger. Probably 250, and we can turn this down to 1 and 1, and hopefully that should just give us, hopefully you'll notice, oh, that's a little bit too uniform for me actually. I'll probably make that bigger, so we just get a slight ripple along the edges, hopefully you can see, and then the same thing again. We'll keep the scale up, and we'll put the noise up quite high so we can see. We'll probably put it up a bit higher and just check how big it is. So there's one noise. We'll keep that at 200, and we'll put that down to 2 mil like we done with the walls earlier, and then might stick another noise on top and put that to 50, and then hopefully we'll get a much smaller effect. We can see that over exaggerated, and we'll turn that down to 1. And then when we deselect it, you should just see some nice varied noise in the surface just from these 3 modifiers. So once we've once you've used those techniques, you can go through, and hopefully this is the kind of result you'll get. You know, it takes a little bit of time. It's quite a manual job. It's not automatic. I've actually left the noises off this one. Just used a slight ripple because I feel like I've put enough dents and bumps and chamfered edges along it for now. And in the next part of the lesson, we'll look at quickly knocking up some threads and unwrapping the beam.